This is
Make it plain.
MIP
With Masamela Matfumo.
Mark Thompson. Get woke.
God bless you. Get woke. Get ready for impeachment. It's time for another podcast. And here with a dear friend. We've grown close over the years, really through these interviews, and a great admirer of her work. Many of you will remember her first as a member of the group LaBelle.
That's right.
And then you will also recall that she branched out on her own. And she is as busy as ever. World-renowned, award-winning recording artist Nona Hendryx is here in studio with us for Make It Plain. Good to see you.
Good to see you,
You
as
look great.
always. Thank
look
you
great.
very much. Thank you.
And you are busy.
I am.
I want to start this way, and I'm going to lift this up. This interview will be heard after these events happen, but I do want to acknowledge
Yes.
you're going to Europe,
Yes.
to Paris and London,
Yes, I am.
to pay tribute to Aretha Franklin.
Yes, with Antibalas and Betty Levette, and several UK artists are on the show, and it's at the Barbican on the 12th, and Paris is the 10th.
Yeah.
Yeah, so they're celebrating Aretha.
So we're 1 year removed from her
Yeah.
passing.
Yes.
What was that like for you? That
It
her
was,
passing, and what was her impact on you?
Her voice is indelible. It's burned into not only my brain, but into my cells, my body. I remember for quite a bit of time going from Trenton, New Jersey to Philadelphia, as this is probably like before LaBelle, when we were still Patti LaBelle and the Bluebells. And I would listen on my cassette player while I waited for the train. I'd listen to Aretha, and she'd get, that was back in days when we had, Walkmans.
Yeah, right.
But, her voice has just been a part of my life from nearly as long as I can remember. After Mahalia Jackson, it was Aretha for me.
Did you get a chance to work with her?
Yes,
With Aretha?
and actually, I was just looking the other day. We had this kind of strange relationship in that, for years I didn't really get to know her, and then all of a sudden I got invited to a birthday party, and so I went, and because I knew Clive from other things, and I went, and she was just really so sweet, and from then on she would invite me to different things, to her shows, to birthday parties over the years. And I have these pictures, a series of pictures over the years from Aretha birthday parties.
Wow.
Right? And then, and the other thing that happened that I could kick myself for not really following up is this, I forget which inauguration it was. I think it was Bill Clinton's inauguration. And it was in Washington, and I was performing at the post office there, and Aretha was performing, I think, at the inauguration.
Right.
I was going into something, and she was coming out, and there were several people sort of ushering her out, and she turned around and says, Nona, I want you to write me a song, right? And I'm going, and we're like passing like ships in the night, and I'm going like, yes, yes, right?
Wow.
And I think later years, I sent 2 songs to her, but I think they went through somebody else, so I never heard back.
Really? Wow. That's a great story.
Yeah, I just wish that's something in my life that as a voice that has inspired me and soothed me and moved me and all those things that I didn't get a chance to actually do that.
And obviously, her impact on the world, you're going to Paris and London. They're going to pay tribute to her over there.
Yeah, and because Aretha
And they've
stopped
invited
traveling.
you to do it.
Well, yes, I'm really.
That says
that's
a lot right
huge
there.
respect.
Yeah.
Because she didn't travel for years after she became really, worried or I think phobic about flying.
About flying, yeah.
And I think she was in some really bad flight that she had, and she stopped flying. And so she didn't, they didn't get to have the wonderful performances that we saw here, because she would travel on her bus to go where she wanted to go, or, yeah, they want to, I guess, celebrate her because, she was the queen.
That's right. She was
Is
definitely
the
the queen.
queen.
So is the queen
Yes.
forever. And congratulations to you for being asked to come
Yeah.
and pay tribute to her. I mean, I don't think people would do that if they did not see your talent and perhaps even her influence on you and your ability to channel that.
Yes, it's a heavy challenge. It's not. I
Right,
think that,
right.
and for me, I just needed to look at it like, okay, I'm going to pay tribute to her and sing it in the way that I would sing it. And there's certain things. I mean, the songs, her catalog of songs,
Yeah.
are. I have pretty much that catalog in my brain, and so there are things that vocally that she would do that fit within my register that I can approach. But then, there's the Aretha Holla that only lived in that body.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, those that fit within your range, I have to ask you then, are there those that you have those songs you have a greater affinity for? Are there favorites that
Yeah.
they just fit you like a glove?
Yeah, I mean, there's songs that probably other people don't think of, like "Dark End of the Street" is one of my favorite. I listened to that song so many times, probably 1,000 times. I'm doing "Till You Come Back to Me," which is another song that most people don't think about. I mean, there's just so many within the catalog that I think are great songs. "Gotta Find Me an Angel."
Yeah,
Those are songs that are just, you hear the first few notes and you know what they are because they were written when people would write songs. And because Aretha played piano, how she approached the song was as an individual. How she, rather than a producer, say, like, my friend Nile Rodgers. Nile has a specific kind of, he and Bernard had a sound, or Ashton and Simpson had a sound, or, Aretha Martin. But Aretha produced what Aretha wanted to do.
Right.
So, there are her songs where you hear either the first few notes of the piano or the introduction of a string line, and you know the song. You know what's coming.
You know what's
right?
coming.
Yes.
Indeed.
Yeah.
Well, congratulations on that.
Yeah.
But now you are working on another major
Yes.
project. You're a very busy woman, and we commend that. And again, you are probably the most revolutionary artist I've been able to sit down with because,
Really?
yeah, I mean, because I didn't get a chance to meet Sun Ra.
Oh.
I knew him.
Yes.
I knew of him, obviously,
Yes.
but I didn't get a chance to meet him.
Yes.
And obviously, if we're going to talk about Afrofuturism, that
Yes.
is revolutionary.
Yes.
And that's out
true.
there.
That's true.
And,
Yes.
and you're doing it, and have had the courage to do it.
Yes.
So Harlem Stage
Yes.
is going to be having some things all over the city.
A series of concerts. It's the year of Sun Ra for them. Last year they did James Baldwin,
Yeah.
and a series of concerts and events around the city celebrating him and his work. And that was done by Michelle Ndegeocello, the amazing bass player and singer and artist. And this year they're celebrating Sun Ra and Afrofuturism and speculative fiction, which, yes, he is if James Brown is the godfather of soul, Sun Ra is the godfather of Afrofuturism in the musical world and literary world, from his poetry and his writings and his belief.
Yeah. So, Nona Hendryx, be an elementary school teacher, if you
Okay.
would. If you would talk to our audience about what exactly is Afrofuturism. What do we mean when we say that?
It was coined by Mark Dreary. Sun Ra didn't coin the word, but Sun Ra was already living the word, and it's really what people would call, in a sense, fear of a black planet. In that Sun Ra believed that you needed to move people of color, black people, into the future, a future way of thinking for their survival, rather than, and also bringing back from the past the
Right.
Egyptian people of color, and which comes out of Africa. So it's really taking people of color back to their strength, as opposed to living in false beliefs, participating in what other people say you are, and knowing that you are descendants of kings
That's
and
right.
queens,
Right.
and that he wrapped it in a very sort of almost science fiction level in terms of his belief that he was brought here from Saturn. So, people kind of saw that as a, way of going, oh, that's ridiculous. But he was crazy like a fox, in that he was speaking knowledge and sending it through, it was about energy and how you lived your life in knowledge of who you are and where you come from.
I think it's interesting. We're talking about futurism, but he did have such a great emphasis on our past glory as an African people. So you have to understand, even his name, Sun Ra.
Yes.
You have to embrace the past in order to talk about futurism.
Yes, exactly. And that, I think he was also, bringing together more like a family of people, because being indoctrinated in a Western way of thinking is more about not being a part of a family, because we had been so separated from each other from the time that we were brought here on ships and sold at auction block, that we were not taught, or were not allowed, to be a community. As if you go to Africa, where if you go to an airport, if you go to a office building, if you go to there are black people. It's where we were here, and we were separated.
Yeah.
And so Sun Ra was about, even with the orchestra, which he spelled A-R.
Arc, yes.
Yes, orchestra. That his musicians, they sort of lived with him, and they lived the music. And his music was brilliant music, because you hear it and you think, like, what is that? People are just making stuff. It's not like really something that somebody, it's not Beethoven, it's not, But when you get into it and you start taking it apart, and the musicians work, this is specific. The instruments are specific. They're on the vibration, but the vibration comes to each of them. What they're doing comes together to make. It's like a stew, When you cook a stew, all the ingredients are separate, but when you put them together, without one of those ingredients, it just doesn't taste like. Yeah.
Well, and again, arc, he spelled it A-R-K,
Yes,
orchestra.
orchestra.
And you think about when we hear the story of Noah and the ark, there are all those ingredients. Every species of living thing is there. Being a part of the orchestra, I guess, then was less of a job and having a gig. It was more of a type of living.
Yeah.
And being a part of a collective and a family.
Yes. I think it was, again, an extension of something, if you say Duke Ellington and his orchestra.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's a very good point.
That's, and they didn't go as far as Sun Ra took it. They were a band of fellow travelers and musicians and creatives, and people came out of it, But a lot of the Sun Ra musicians are still the Sun Ra musicians. They make that music. That is it.
Yeah. That's what they do.
They don't go off and play with Miles or whoever, and go off and do
else.
right.
Right.
So it's like you sign up for life.
Yeah.
But it's also, Sun Ra was he was unique in that, he didn't really sort of like push himself out there. He was like, leading by example, as opposed to, on a soapbox saying, follow me. And it was like, this is my belief, this is what I do, and I'm doing it, and you can see I'm doing it, and, if that's where you want to go, come with me.
It's interesting, too. Everybody need a soapbox. there's a subtlety kind of intersecting with an outspokenness just in the name, because that's what got my
Yeah.
attention when I first
Yes.
heard of him. Sun Ra. I said, "Oh, okay."
Yes.
You know, my son's name is Minra.
Oh, really?
Yeah, you know, and some people
Ah.
get it.
Yes.
Like, and I know you've been
Yeah,
around
yeah.
people like I remember I first introduced my son. We were at one of the marches on Washington years ago. I think the 50th, and we ran into Professor Greg Carr at Howard University. I introduced my son, and he said, "What's your son's name?" I said, Minra, and Greg just stood up at attention. You know, some of us just get it.
Yes.
And so that's how I was when I heard Sun Ra and his orchestra. I was like, "Oh, okay."
Yes.
And like you said, that didn't need a speech.
No.
There are those who get it. And that's one of the beauties of art, because really that's what art is supposed to be. Not, you know, a Nona Hendryx or an Aretha Franklin or a Sun Ra giving a speech. I give a speech. I deal in politics.
Yes.
But you all put the art out there, and it's up to us to go deeply into it, enjoy it, and discern it. That's what poetry is.
Yes.
A poem's not a poem if I say, just spell it all out
Yes.
for you with the cliff notes. You have to really feel it and get it.
Yes.
And that's what he was doing.
Yeah, and also, you know, a lot of people don't know his beginning. You know, he was from the South,
Yeah.
and he was really, you know, playing kind of more sort of a blues-based music. And the thing that to me that changed him was when you have to go into the military. It was back in the days when they would send you a letter saying you had to show up to go into the military.
We're drafted.
Drafted,
Yeah.
yes. And he did not want to go. He did not believe in it. And he said, you know, I'm a musician. I'm not going into the military. And they imprisoned him for a period of time and put him through tests to see if there was something, if he was mentally disturbed. And I think that had a huge effect on him. And going to Chicago after that, I think it moved him into, you know, like recognizing the oppression that he had been through that period, and how to break out of that. And I think that's where he found either a place for himself within himself, right, which some people could say is insane, that if you go within yourself to find yourself and not live by society's rules, people could say you're crazy, right? So some people put it to that, but I think for him, for his survival, he had to find another way to exist on this planet.
Yeah.
And it was through turning his music, turning his thoughts from the inside rather than from the outside in. What he believed rather than what I believed or you believed.
He said he was from Saturn.
Yes.
Did he really believe that?
Yes, he believed that he was brought here. He believes that, and it seems to be true, that we are stardust. We come from, you know, I mean, some people can look at it and say that, like, okay, that's, you know, you're a body, you're a person, you're born from your parents, you're that. But, you know, if you look at life, if you break life down, and I'm about to get down to quantum physics.
Come on.
Yes. We are stardust.
Yeah.
You know, we are light. We are, you know, and that's so, yes, we have traveled. We travel through space without spaceships. We travel through time without spaceships. Really. And this is, I think science would bear this out, that if you break us down, that's really all we are. We're energy.
You know, I once asked Neil deGrasse Tyson,
Yes.
who is considered the authority on these things,
Yes.
if there is other life or life like us. And he said to me, considering what we're made of
Yes.
and the matter that makes us up, it's not, it's out there.
Yes, of course.
It's so there really has to be. It's not far-fetched
I wholly believe that, in that just because I am constituted the way that I am, or humans are, that other life forms exist. They don't have to look like us, like, fish doesn't look like us, but it's a life form.
Yeah.
And ultimately, we evolved from a single cell organism over time. I know there are those who don't believe in science. I'm not going to call them out.
Right.
But, I mean, it's there. There's proof. And also, when you look under a microscope at anything, or X-ray, or any of the ultrasound systems and the modern technology, you begin to see that we are not as we appear.
Yeah.
As I think there's a famous saying, which is one of my favorite: "Life isn't what it seems, nor is it otherwise." And that's my constant koan to keep me focused and understanding that kind of like what I see isn't always what you get.
That's right.
Another way of saying it.
In spite of the song. Right.
In spite of the song. Yes.
But what about God? Did he believe in God or a creator?
Believed in a creator, but not in the the Christian
Of course, right.
form. I mean, if you go back to the Egyptian understanding of gods, or even further back, the belief in a single God happened a long time ago, but it was really, yet again, somebody perpetuating a belief that caught on.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So, no, Sun Ra believed in ultimate beings, but not a singular one. And I really today cannot disagree with him, because, I was brought up under the Christian, and it's so funny because we were African, AME.
Okay.
So I'm like, kind of, what religion is that? It's Methodist Episcopal, and it's African, and it's like, okay, so what is that's not
Right.
what is it actually? And then you got this traditional Bible that we're being taught, and and so I questioned that very early on, and began to sort of sit, in church, because I had to, because my mom was like, "You will be going to church," and I'd sit there and go like, I don't really get this.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yes, Sun Ra, in terms of, now that I've lived a few times around the sun, I can see that, believing in an energy that would express itself through many things in the universe or solar system. For me, that is my belief. That is my truth. That there is no singular God, that somebody who made these things and put them on the planet and said, "You're a tree," and you're, I think life is expression.
Yeah.
And where that first expression came from, I have no idea, but I'm living it.
Yeah, you're living it. Less of my fellow Christian preachers who are listening to this will say, Mark's only doing it. But like I said to Neil, I kind of move Neil, because Neil, I won't say I move him, I won't be that arrogant, but when we talked about it before, one time we talked, and he was just, not feeling the issue of faith and spirituality. He's purely scientific.
Yes.
But then we talked a second time, and he kind of softened when we talked about it. Because, for me, the two can coexist. We can have the faith beliefs. And I
Yes.
believe our ancient Egyptian Kemetic ancestors
Yes.
were actually the first to interpret humankind's relationship with God.
Yes.
So there's not
Yes.
as you said, there's not a contradiction in that if we're going back to that history.
Yes.
But I said to Neil, he was right next to me, we talking about with the Big Bang. And I said, well, Neil, who made the bang go bang? So we had some fun with that. But no, I understand that. And it's really, to me, there's a beauty in even going on the journey, even us talking about this.
Yes.
Where did we come from? Why are these things the way that they are? And honestly, as we look at everything that's happening,
Yes.
the things that are energy and forces and nature around us, maybe we ought to go deeper within ourselves and take all of those things more seriously. And is what you're saying or what Sun Ra's saying so much more far-fetched than now many of us now finally admitting, y'all, we causing these hurricanes.
Yes.
Now, 100 years ago, nobody would have thought, I'm sitting around here, going to work every day, living my life.
Yes.
I'm not causing a hurricane.
Yes.
But I actually have the ability and the energy to create something that we would normally call a force of God and force of nature to actually exist and be more intensified than it has ever been before. You know what Dick Gregory used to say? He said the hurricanes actually follow the route of the transatlantic slave trade. They start on the west coast of Africa. They follow the same route and then come up the east coast. So he talked about even that energy. So we got some energy.
Yes. Well, that's all we are.
Yeah.
In the end.
Yeah.
And in the beginning. We don't exist until there's conception.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And what are we before that?
Yeah.
A thought.
thought.
Right? Him thinking he want to get with her. Or
Right.
however
Right.
the conception is done today, whether
Yeah.
it's and then in the end, when we leave here, that is, my thing is all we leave is ashes and memories is all we leave behind, right? And that's just energy. And the fact that there's more of us on the planet that has created more of an imbalance with what there is to resources to be used, whether it's water, air, food, So our consumption to create more of us, because ultimately that's what it is, and how we use the resources that we have is what is causing the imbalance. It's not, and it is to be more mindful about your presence here on the planet to help it survive for those to come in the future. So it's not so much that it isn't that we are causing these issues because there are more of us, right? When there was less of us, hurricane could happen
Right.
over there and there would be no problem because it was mainly maybe, when the dinosaurs disappeared, something catastrophic happened, right? So we're still here, but we can cause something catastrophic to happen
That's right.
for ourselves, and it's really mindfulness, being, thinking about what you do, what you use, how you use it, and how it affects now, and also the future beings that you hope to create,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's really, and that again, it comes down to energy. How much as an individual, okay, do I need 3-4 houses around the world? Do I need how many cars? Do I need how many, boats or whatever I have, or how many plastic bags I use in a week, right? So do I need, as an individual, all of that stuff? I can't take it with me, right?
Right.
It didn't arrive here with me.
Right.
I came naked,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And that I feel the need to accumulate in life, this stuff that I must protect.
Yeah.
I must fix up. I must do this. I must have all this stuff to say I am who I am in the world. None of that what we were talking about Aretha earlier. What I remember is her voice. What I remember is her presence.
Right.
What I remember, I don't know anything about, what happened to all this stuff.
Right. Right.
I don't know. I don't care.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And I think that's what we've gotten. And what Sun Ra was saying, he was just like, he wore caftans, you know, because he didn't want to buy into that I've got to have a suit and, and be this person and have, all these suits that I wear that represent something to somebody else that I am not.
Mm. Mm. Tell us about your relationship with him, and as enlightened as you are now, as you said, you were sitting in the church
Yes.
and questioning, so that was a process itself.
Yes.
When did the light bulb finally go off in your head? What did he help you
Oh,
to
yeah.
figure that out?
Yes. I mean, there are two, well, I'm trying to think how many there are. I mean, Stevie Wonder had that same thing. He did it in a different way, but he had that same musical, for me, dynamic that made me question things.
Right.
And that was his first album after leaving, I think it's leaving Motown, fulfilling his first finale. I think that was his first one.
Yeah.
And, but also going back then to Sun Ra and in Philadelphia, there was this whole thing going on where he came to Philadelphia after, instead of there. And I was spending a lot of time, because that's Patti LaBelle and the Bluebells, that was our point where we met and rehearsed, and that's because Patty lived there, and we were Sarah and I from Trenton, New Jersey.
Right.
We would just, hop on the train and go there. And there, Sun Ra was there, and a lot of the musicians who were more in was considered the jazz world, were based in Philadelphia. I think Fletcher Henderson, different people like that. And the first time I heard the music, I was like, and people were talking about this guy called Sun Ra who was in Philadelphia, and I was like, we were singing like nice little girl songs and, doo-wop, almost doo-wop-ish,
Right.
early poppy, Down the Aisle, I'll Walk With You, songs like that. And
Commercial stuff.
Yes, I mean, we were, 16, going on 17, and, I forget who it was. It was like this musician at the Uptown Theater, and we would play the Uptown Theater all the time because we were kind of like hometown girls, Patti LaBelle and the Bluebells. And this guy was telling me about this guy called Sun Ra, and that's where I first heard his name. I was like, Sun who? Sun Ra. And so being inquisitive, I began to investigate. And my brother had brought home a copy of a Yusef Lateef album. And I remember hearing that album and thinking like, oh my God, what is that noise?
Yeah.
Why are you playing that?
Right.
And my brother was like being cool, he was into jazz and, and then I heard Sun Ra and I went, oh, okay. I'm beginning to get this. And that was my introduction to Sun Ra. And very interestingly, there is another movement in Philadelphia of young people influenced by Afrofuturism making music in another very different way.
Wow. Oh, that's incredible.
Yes.
So, did you ever get to work with him directly?
No.
Okay.
Didn't work with him directly. I wish that would have been, I don't know. That hit Sun Ra and Captain Beefheart, Don Van Fleet, are two people who I could say either twisted my brain or untwisted my brain. If you think of a double helix, they did either, one of them did something, and then the other person would be, as I said, there was a Stevie Wonder, and then also somebody who I did get to spend time with was Frank Zappa, who was also of the same...
Right.
Yeah. Not on the metaphysical side, but musically.
What would you say the state or the status of Afrofuturism is today? Is it an ongoing movement?
Yeah, and it's having a large resurgence in terms of young people from sort of the Afro-punk
Did you go to Afropunk this year?
No, I didn't.
Okay.
I
Okay. How they gonna
didn't
have
make it.
Afropunk without you?
I don't know. They had it. I was there last year,
I know.
but they had it. That's okay.
Okay.
I'm
But we need to
I'm
do-
moving on into the future.
Yeah, all right, all right. Well,
I'm into
we'll-
some. I'm into cyborgalism, so they can stay with the Afropunk.
So
I
what
moved on.
cyborgalism? What is that?
A marriage of human and machine, the dream machine,
Mm.
right? So because we can, so the cyborg and the oracle comes together.
Wow.
Yes, that's the cyborgal. That's the next. Sun Ra would be with me because
So do you manifest cyborgalism? Did I say it right?
yes,
In music too?
yes, of course.
Okay.
I
Okay.
do it by using technology in terms of one of the early things I started working with is called an audio tutu, which is a plexiglass tutu that I wear to perform in.
Mm.
And I was able to sort of migrate through Lincoln Center from different places and like a Pied Piper and take people with me. I have a couple of gloves that I use to control my voice and sound. And so it's integrating myself with the technology, and the next step is actually having implants so that I don't have to wear anything on the outside to control some of the technology, which is already being done. So that's my
Implants already being done.
yeah. It's not there's a professor like 20 something years ago who had RF devices implanted in his arm so he controlled the doors, open doors, turns computers on.
You want to do implants? Is that something you want to do?
Oh, yeah.
But for your purposes, it would be
Music.
For music.
Mm-hmm.
So let's be specific. Give me an example. What kind of implant would you consider?
A chip, that I could either have, because there are chips now for different things for hearing.
Right.
Of
course.
We're moving there, to
So-
human and machine. So I would have a chip implanted so that I could wirelessly control music on my laptop, or any wireless instruments that can be controlled by Bluetooth or Wi-Fi. So I could have my own sort of network that I connect to, and instead of having to actually play an instrument to connect to the sound source, I could just do it either by movement through, because the chip is implanted and the chip would be wired, and using either some sort of sensor inside of my body, or a sensor that has a connector, a dongle, or maybe not even a dongle, to some form of receiver,
Mm-hmm.
whether it's a laptop or a.
Wow.
But we're there.
Using your body to
Yeah.
transmit and perform
Yes.
music.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
And you're going to do that.
Yeah.
Wow. When could we actually see something like that? I mean, how close are you to achieving that?
What I think is really close. I mean, just in terms of being able to, I need to find the right team to actually work with me to do the implant and program the chip so that it can recognize the instrument. And so it's a team that I'm assembling. Right now, I do it by using a glove or different
Right,
gloves that have
right.
the ability to use Bluetooth. Bluetooth is a little funky, so
Yeah.
it needs to be a better, more stable
right.
system. So
Wow.
I am an ambassador at Berklee College of Music, and I work with the EPD department, which is the Electronic Production and Design department, and we are developing we do it in performance, but using technology, and this year we'll use AR and VR in performance to move into that sort of augmented reality world, and also in the virtual reality world where you can, now we still use things like controllers to do that in the virtual world, but eventually if you have a chip implanted, You don't have to have a controller. You become the controller.
Wow, that's fascinating.
Yeah, it's
And that's courageous too, and revolutionary. Cyboricalism, did I say it right?
cyboricalism. You saying it right.
And so cyboricalism, we would call that a branch of Afrofuturism?
That is, to me,
Yeah.
the next step.
Yeah.
About Afrofuturism is, I would say, the mother of cyboricalism, because you can,
Yeah.
you know, saying cyborical, the oracle comes from the Egyptian,
Yeah.
the past, people who would speak.
Yeah.
And that's why it relates for me to music and to art, because without art, without music, without, the human being, kind of, what are we? We become then just, the species just becomes a propagating species. But the fact that we have this ability to be moved by an image, to be moved by sound, to be moved to the point where we're moved to tears, or we have this expression of joy that we feel, that it moves us to dance. That for me comes from is what makes us human.
Yeah.
And that comes from that is the oracle part of the cyber part, and that's what brings them together for me.
Well, obviously, it's a podcast, so people who listen to podcasts probably will have an affinity, because one of the things about the podcast genre is that you can go kind of deep.
Yes.
So we're going deep today.
Yes.
But as I hear you talking about it, and I talk about this a lot, to me, Nona, a lot of us really are already machines without realizing it. But it's the wrong kind of machine. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
Like they can program us through consumerism to do whatever they want us to do. And then you become,
Yes.
machined yourself. Like they tell you got to go get that chicken sandwich.
Yes.
And I've been saying to people, that chicken has always been there. You could have got it and put it between two pieces of bread.
Yeah.
And now they out of the chicken sandwiches. How does the chicken place run out of chicken? I mean, and then people are like, I'm disappointed. No. The chicken is still there. Just take it home, put between two pieces of bread. But we're machinated.
Machinated.
I mean, I just made that word up. But you know what I'm saying? Doesn't that blow your mind? People go, man, they got a chicken sandwich. I said, well, you could have, and I stayed in line, but you still could have got some chicken and took it home, put it between two pieces of bread. Isn't that amazing?
Yes, there've always been chicken sandwiches. Always. Right?
And they program us, tell us how to think, how to vote, and all that.
But it's not coated with all that other stuff.
That's right.
So you think, like, I got to have a McNugget, because
Yeah.
that's not, that other chicken ain't chicken.
It ain't chicken. This is fascinating.
Yes. So
No.
yes, there is something about the evolution of humanity, of species, that if you are not aware and present, you do begin to believe that you are what people say you are, rather than knowing, and finding out for yourself. And it really does come from the inside out, as opposed from the outside in.
Yeah. Just back in terms of our history and ancestry, when they saw pyramids on the moon, and they had to reconcile the genius of our ancient Egyptian or Kemetic ancestors, they started to say that these weren't real black people, or that these were people who came from outer space and built the pyramids.
Yes.
I'm sure Sun Ra thought, as I thought, well, why couldn't it be the other way around?
Yes.
Why couldn't our ancient black ancestors have gone to the moon before we even thought of it? And, we talk about 1619, as you said, we're not just descendants of slaves.
No.
Our ancestors came and explored America before Columbus in the 1300s,
Yes.
Dr. Ivan Van Sertima says.
Yes.
So I appreciate the whole thing around 1619, but I'm saying, well, let's also commemorate 1325, when Abubakari, the
Yes.
scientist, came here and navigated from Africa, from Mali,
Yes.
to come here to North America and establish trade with the indigenous people here.
Yes.
And produce life with them. So
Yes.
you're right. We have to, part of the future is also going back to fetch it.
Yes, and it's also, knowledge is king,
Yeah.
because it is, that we have a brain, that we have a mind,
Right.
that we use to create this world, right?
That's right.
And if you don't have the knowledge, you live in disbelief. You don't know who you are, and that's why our educational system, if we want to talk about today, and from, I guess, since the Western society evolved and put things down in the English language, our knowledge has only been that knowledge,
Yeah.
right? And unless you are willing to, or inspired to, or somehow someone shares with you that there is, here, look here, you did not see this. You need to see this, because the knowledge you have is limited. This knowledge will give you more understanding of true history. If you think about what we're taught in school as history and history of the world, it is really poor.
Yeah, of course.
You know,
of course,
so
of course.
That's why it's important to investigate, right? To be inspired to question, because we're taught not to question. Like, just here, this is the test, this is what you should know, this is what, it's like, no, wait a minute. So if this happened, because there is that if this, then,
There.
right.
Right.
So questioning and the internet has brought about the ability, or a stronger ability, to question.
Yeah.
And that, to me, is what the internet came into being for, was to question.
Also, just in terms of Afrofuturism,
Yeah.
which has to include the knowledge, the information, the power that comes from that.
Yes.
For our young people, I've always contended that if our young people knew, and were taught, as they are woefully untaught as it stands today, if they were taught that their ancestors were not just slaves,
Yes.
but were the first civilization on earth,
Yes.
the first scientists and doctors and engineers and mathematicians, chemistry, chemet,
Yes.
then our children would feel even more inspired and empowered and confident.
Oh, they'd know who they are.
But to pursue some of these STEM fields.
Yes.
You deal with, math, I hate math, math is hard. But your ancestors created math.
Yes.
That changes your orientation.
Yes.
Like you
I
say, the
agree.
twisting and untwisting.
Yeah.
And if they knew that,
Yes. Yes.
we'd be having a different conversation.
Yes, because what I was taught was that the alphabet and the the Western society's idea of numbers and
Right.
what numbers mean, even. So yes, Afrofuturism. It's just even the word is ancient, and it's the future.
Yeah, it is.
It's
It is.
human, the beginning of life, and it is science. Right? So just that. And then you get to, speculative fiction.
Right.
What is speculative and what is fiction? And at different points, people can say, oh, well, science or scientists they're speculating on something. So a lot of science reports are, this is a hypothesis, this is something that we think could happen, could be. And you look at fiction, it is considered to be not real, something that
Right.
is made up.
Right.
But, to me, that is not true. It is, speculative is thinking, imagination,
Yeah.
and having an imagination. If you couldn't imagine this world, it would not exist.
That's right. That's right.
And fiction is something that, for me, that you attach to it to say that I can fix it in a place, that this that I'm speculating on right? So those terms, Afrofuturism, speculative fiction, when you begin to break them down and think about them in relationship to, on a, if you're doing, chemistry or any of the sort of higher, was considered the higher education. These are things that come from, the Egyptian, African
That's right.
world. They didn't have maybe the name or
Right.
or it was a symbol that represented.
That's right. From a language that we couldn't understand and
Yes.
still are seeking to understand.
Yes.
This has been an amazing conversation. Cyborgalism. I even Cyborgalism. I'm sorry.
But
Cyborgalism.
But also, and speaking of STEM, when number 45 came into being,
Right.
with the whole disappointment for myself that happened, I was starting this organization called SistersMatter.org, and it's Sisters, SMATR, for Science, Math, Art, Technology, and Robotics, for young girls between the ages of 14 and 18. And I was supposed to have the meeting that next day after the election, and everybody was like really
Wiped
just
out.
messed up.
Yeah.
But I said, you know what? I'm good. Let's have this meeting.
Right.
Let's
Keep
turn
going.
this ship around
Right away.
today, right? And let's start introducing some young girls of color into technology, but doing it through the lens of art, because a lot of times for me, young girls are, as a young girl, you're given a doll, you're giving like a little cooking set, you're given, all these things that supposed to be what you're going to basically do.
Right.
You're indoctrinated right away, right?
Right away.
Boys get trucks, digging things, building things, right? And so, I could see how even just from, when you're a baby, the brain is malleable and your things are getting set. So the teenage years are the years when you rebel and you can break out and find something new for yourself. And that's why I chose between 14 and 18. And it's to introduce young women of color to technology, because I also read that 3% of the positions in technology in the next sort of 15, 20 years would be women, be filled by women. And I thought, what percentage of that would be women of color?
Right.
So we needed to.
So where is it now? Where's that organization?
This
at?
is our third year, and we did a pilot, and we at the Robert Wagner School in Long Island City. They're working with a counselor there, so we found first we were in the YMCA at the Long Island City, but we had being a technology program, the Wi-Fi wasn't really working so well for us. So we were able to go into the Robert Wagner Junior Art and Technology School to run the program. And so we're going into our third year, and I'm building a pipeline of students that I work with at Berklee College of Music, the young women who I've encouraged more women to come into that EPD department. And once they graduate, I hire them to teach the young students for Sisters Matters Fab Lab, so they can come out of school with a job in a field that they've studied and teach other young women.
Wow.
And maybe those young women will go to Berkeley or go to some sort of into technology.
Outstanding.
And be prepared.
Outstanding. That's great.
Yeah, it's important.
Futurism,
Yes.
paying it forward.
Yes.
All that is future.
And Afro.
And Afro, no question about it.
Yes.
So, folks, the cosmic synthesis of Sun Ra and Afro futurism, order out of chaos, taking place at Harlem Stage, and throughout the fall.
It will,
there will be
12 for a year. It's a
For a
year
year.
long. Yeah,
It's a
from
year long.
September to September.
So, what does that look like? You'll be doing talks and whatnot.
We're going to cover almost every area in terms of music, literature, speculative fiction literature, whether it's anime or bringing people in to have conversation. and have open up for discussion. Order Out of Chaos is the first one. We'll show 2 films by African American sci-fi filmmakers, and then have a discussion about it. Afterwards, Craig Harris, who played for 4 years with Sun Ra, will be on the panel. And then myself, I will perform in my audio tutu and using some of my technology for performance. And I discovered this performer called Brobot Johnson.
Yeah.
He's a brother who's a robot.
Okay.
Brobot Johnson performs using loops and DJing, and controls his voice, and has a message about being, science and how science, and he's also a filmmaker as well.
That's
and
outstanding.
a musician. So that's our first program. Then we're going to we have the next program is with I was saying about this movement in Philadelphia of Afrofuturism, and they're on a whole other level of quantum physics and how to move forward using the quantum theory to deal with our past and our present. And there's 2 young women. One of them is a lawyer in daytime, and then she is Rashida Phillips, but she is known as a black quantum futurist.
Wow.
That is the movement, and that's her name. And then there's More Mother, but more like in MOOR.
Yes.
More Mother, and they will be performing on December 13th and bringing their black quantum futurist thought project to Harlem Stage. And in February, we will be in a collaboration with the Metropolitan Museum, and Craig Harris will lead a group of musicians, and we will perform some of Sun Ra's music. But I also have brought in another person because I believe that there is no separation between African, Egyptian, and indigenous people around the world. And so a friend of mine, Virgil Ortiz, who also has an indigenous futuristic approach to his art, has created these aeronauts who are native future people. So he designs, he's a sculptor and a ceramist, but he also designs costuming that is, you see it and you think Africa and Egyptian, but it's also native and future.
Wow.
The title of the event is called Nona, Hendryx, and the Disciples of Sun Ra in the Temple of Dindor.
Wow.
So we'll be performing in the temple in front of the huge temple entrance that they brought back from Egypt.
And this is when? This
is February 29th.
And that'll be also
2020.
And that'll be here.
In New York.
In New York,
at the
okay.
Metropolitan Museum.
Wow, that's amazing.
You can go; they'll have it up on their website soon. And then we have Craig will be doing a full performance of Sun Ra's music at Harlem Stage.
Wow.
And celebrating Marshall Allen, who's one of the original Sun Ra members, who's 94.
Wow.
I think 93, 94.
Wow.
And still hitting hard on the
Still
stage.
hitting
Still.
Outstanding.
I saw him, and it's like, really? You're never going to sit down throughout this entire show and
Wow.
playing the horn and leading the orchestra, and he's got,
Amazing.
he's got like stacks and stacks of like kind of Sun Ra composition manuscripts on stage, like I'm like high, and he kind of like shuffle through them and go like, oh yeah, we'll do that one. All right. Never sat down, never looked at the music, just played it.
Yeah.
And all of the
Amazing.
orchestra, it was just like,
Amazing.
it's like you eat a really good collard green.
Oh,
Collard green. You know it.
You know it.
Yes.
You know it. You
Yes.
know it. So harlemstage.org. And do you have a website where people can keep up with everything?
Of course I do.
Please. So I want people to follow you. And
Just www.nonahendryx.com.
And you'll have all
And
those events.
all those
okay,
events are
good.
listed there. I have a
Okay.
newsletter. You can sign up.
Beautiful.
So you
We
can
wanna
get
do that.
some more 411 on
And you'll
me.
see me. I want to come see this.
Oh, please.
I want to come see your, what kind of tutu do you call it? It's a
It's an audio tutu.
audio tutu. I want to see all of that.
It's-
Nona Hendryx, folks. This is something else.
yes.
Uh,
Wait till I get truly wired.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we want to see that.
Yeah.
Implants.
Implants.
You got a
indeed.
timetable?
I don't want to say too soon because
Okay.
people be like, it's like, where's she at?
Yeah, where's
You
you
know?
right. So
Yeah,
it's-
where's Newman? But I'm gathering my team. I have to get the medical team has to
Of course,
come
of
together
course.
because.
Because we want you to be all right, mother. We love you now. We want
Yeah,
you. This
no.
is innovative and revolutionary. But we
Yeah,
want you to
but
be okay.
it's so now, like, implants now are like,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
you can get things in your teeth and stuff. And
That's right. And they're there, so it's not like they don't exist.
yeah.
Wonderful to see you.
Good to see you.
Speaking
as always.
of getting it, like we talked about it, and knowing a good collard, a real collard green.
Real
was
collard
it?
green.
So I'm
Your
gonna,
mama's collard green.
So I'm gonna try this on you before we go, because I think
Okay.
you're gonna get it. You're gonna
Okay.
know this collard green.
Okay.
I had a guest on yesterday. In fact, President of NAACP, they just came back. It took about 300 people to Ghana.
Oh.
Jamestown,
Brilliant.
16, 19.
Yes.
And so I brought him on to talk about it. But he had already been on my social media over the weekend and saw what I had done over the weekend. And he stopped me. He said, first, when you talk about what you did. So he got it, and a few other people got it in terms of where I was and what I did this weekend. And I have a feeling Nona Hendryx is going to get it too. I was down in rural Virginia.
I didn't look at your Twitter feed
Well,
this
that's all
weekend.
right. But that's okay. But
I normally do.
But this is we're gonna get your immediate reaction here on the
Okay.
air.
You were.
I was down in rural Urbana, Virginia. George Gresham of 1199, the largest local union, so to speak. Well, it's not really local, but healthcare workers had a Get Out to Vote R&B concert, and I emceed it. Rem Barber was there.
Yeah.
The opening act, well, there were two opening acts, GQ and Angela Winbush, even though she's not an opening act. But the main event was I emceed and introduced the Isley Brothers.
Oh.
So those who get the collard green, have been treating me differently.
Yeah.
Folk, I didn't even know had the kind of respect for me they had. They called me, brother, you, and that's what Derek said.
Yeah.
You emceed the Isley Brothers, so we got it on video and everything.
Yeah.
And first of all, I have a different sense of self now. I'll never be the same, as you can imagine. I'm sure you can relate. I'll never be the same.
I grew up with it.
Of
so, that's where
And still doing it. They are 60 years.
they turned Jimmy around.
Yeah.
Jimmy wasn't Jimmy until he got with the Isley Brothers,
That's
right?
right, that's right.
And having known all of the Isley Brothers for years, watched them, they were on that comedic.
Yeah.
They went there too. We
Yeah.
all, from the LaBelle, and that sort of our influence on the Afrofuturism vibe, although we didn't call it that. It was more, people saw it more as a science fiction, but it really was about Afrofuturism, you
Yeah.
know. And then you had,
Because they even paid tribute
P-Funk.
to Earth, Wind, and Fire
Earth,
in
Wind,
the
and Fire.
concert.
Yes, I have to give LaBelle props because LaBelle brought that whole movement in terms of Earth, Wind, and Fire saw what we were doing, and they went like, oh, I think we better get ourselves a whole new vibe for stage. George came to our concert, George Clinton, and George's like, what? I'm going to get me a spaceship, right?
Yeah.
Kiss, because the person who designed our things designed clothes for all of them. I think
Okay,
not
okay.
not Earth and Fire, but the Isley Brothers were also
That's
on
right.
that period that they also came into that. I think it was kind of in the air in the way that it's in the air now, that Afrofuturism movement, and I'm glad to see it coming back because or not coming back, being uplifted again by another generation.
And come to think of it, just again, you saying that out loud now, because you know what my favorite song is, the Isley Brothers.
No.
Even if from a little kid, and I say it to the audience. Most of us wouldn't even been born if it weren't for the Isley Brothers. You talk about that thought, how it begins with a thought. Isley Brothers helped the thought, did they not?
Yes, they brought the thought.
You know, they would. You know, even if LaBelle Star and other people, the Isley Brothers usually close the deal.
Oh yes. Yeah.
So my favorite, and speaking of what you're saying, now that you really got me going now.
Yeah.
Voyage to Atlantis.
Oh yes.
Whoa.
Yes.
Because
we can bring some. You can bring on Brother Isaac Hayes up in there.
That's true. That's
you
true.
know, I mean, you know, that whole period of time from like the late '60s going into the '70s, when we had this mind expansion of our African history, and even in the Muslim movement with Malcolm X, and there was a lot of thought and thinking going on, and a lot of people who may have been seen as, our people, the Black Panthers, they were friends with the poets and the musicians, and
right.
We did, we were on a show. Stokely Carmichael was the MC, right? So there was transference of thought, and you have Bob Marley, and people were, and I think we're there again. When you have people like Common and people who are really putting some thought into, their musical content and how it is delivered and who hears it and why they hear it and what it does that they hear it, and, rather than, I get me another car, I get me some more this, that, or the other. It's like, this thing that I do has ramifications.
Yeah. Nona Hendryx.
Sorry, I got on my soapbox.
No, listen. No, you're implanting in all of us. I mean, what you're,
Right.
Really, no, this is meaningful.
Once I get my implant, I'm going to be implanting.
Well, I'm saying intellectually, you're already doing it. And
Yes.
the beauty of this being a podcast, this will always live, even beyond you and me, so people can come back and hear this.
Well, yes.
And say, whoa, this is what Nona, and you just broke, right here, you've just given us all a primer on the history of Afrofuturism and how many people were involved in this movement.
And there's so much more, and there's so many new writers. I mean, people know of Octavia Butler and Shapeshifters and It's Shifting, and but there are a lot of other writers who have written, and more are writing today. A lot of women writing on Afrofuturism and writing stories that are influenced by, the Africanness. That's not a word, I'm not sure. But, in today and being able to move through time. Right.
So I was an Afrofuturist and probably didn't even realize it.
Yes.
Amen.
Yes, you. I knew you were when I first met you.
Bless you.
I knew you were.
Thank you.
Yes.
NonaHendryx.com. Go there and keep up with everything, and we're going to look for many other great things, and this will not be the last time we see each other either.
Hopefully not.
No, absolutely. I promise you it won't. We've always had in-depth conversations.
Yes.
Love you.
Love you too.
Safe travels
I follow you.
Thank you.
I'll be checking for you.
Thank you.
Yes.
So good to see you.
You too.
Nona Hendryx, ladies and gentlemen. NonaHendryx.com. We lift up the name of Sun Ra and all that he did for the Afrofuturist movement. And we thank our Queen Mother, Nona Hendryx, for introducing us to cyborgalism.
Yes,
And
you got that.
We look and the work you're doing with the young women, amazing. Thank you so much.
You're
Thank
welcome.
You. All right. Thank you for listening to Make It Plain and Get Woke. Remember to listen, like, and subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and wherever you get your podcasts. Also, subscribe to Make It Plain and Get Woke daily. Check out makeitplain.com to subscribe. If all minds are clear, it has been playing.